Think of civilization, the cities, streets, people, and bright lights that form it. Now look closer, close enough to see the subtleties and nuances shared from person to person. This process of physically interacting with someone face-to-face is called interpersonal communication. Interpersonal communication has evolved as years have gone by, and it is fair to say that every generation has experienced something different and unique. The silent generation, baby boomers, Generation X, millennials, and Generation Z all have different perspectives that diverge but intersect in some areas. Here is a look at what they had to say.
Jenny Biziano is a native of Logansport, Indiana, and has spent the majority of her adult life in Peru, Indiana. She was a vital member to the family business, an Italian restaurant called Froggy's, from 1965 to 1985.
So how have you personally seen a change with how we communicate with one another in your lifetime?
Communication has taken over. I mean, it's like technology.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody talks to one another anymore. It's like we didn't have cell phones and internet and TV, all the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we had to play with one another, talk to one another.
So how much different is the way your grandkids communicate versus the way you communicated as a kid?
They are on their cell phones or computers or iPads all the time. They want someone, they send them a message on one of those. We had none of that. We wanted someone, we went outdoors and yelled, "Hey, so-and-so, you want to play?" You know,
Okay.
big difference.
Where do you think the future of face-to-face communication will go, and will it increase or decrease?
Oh, I think it'll get worse.
Mm-hmm.
People will talk to one another, person to person, face to face, more and more, yeah.
Mm-hmm. What could the current generation do to improve on communicating efficiently?
Start communicating with each other more and more and more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, put the cell phones down.
Okay.
Look at each other,
Mm-hmm.
eye to eye.
Jeff Bauer is an educator within the Gahanna-Jefferson School District. Born in 1963, Jeff Bauer is at the tail end of the baby boomer generation.
Well, you know, growing up, I grew up in the country, and it was not uncommon for us to be outdoors and have neighbors stop by and just chat. Today, I just feel like there's a lot more technology involved. People use their phones more readily today to converse back and forth via text, chat.
Okay. So in teaching, how has today's classroom changed from a face-to-face communication aspect?
Well, you know, with elementary, it hasn't changed a whole lot. I mean, technology certainly is a component that we use today for instruction, but a lot of it is teacher-directed, and you know, we work, as far as classroom teachers, they work in small groups oftentimes. They might work one-on-one with a student. They also try to get kids into small groups and have them working and trying to problem solve in that respect. But technology is certainly a part or an aspect that teachers will use today, and I think that that's effective in a lot of ways because it gives kids another opportunity or alternative to their learning styles.
Okay, very cool. And then where do you think the future of face-to-face communication will go? Will it increase, decrease?
Well, you know, I think that with today's teenagers especially, and then your young adults, I think that it's very common for them to be on their phones a large majority of the day and just text rather than be face to face. And you know, there's no emotion with a conversation like that. So I think that in general we're going to see more technology continue to kind of lead the way.
Lastly, what could the current generation do to improve upon communicating?
Well, quite honestly, I just think that there needs to be a time during the day where you just put your phone down. and you work to just have conversation. I think it's a natural kind of a thing to do that around dinner time. Put phones aside, sit down, have a meal, and just check in with each other and find out how each other's doing, how their day was, that kind of thing, and just work to spend time with each other in that regard and get to know each other and let each other just kind of converse and speak with one another.
Ross Samuels is the store owner and operator of Surplus World, an Army and Navy surplus shop located on Morse Road. The store has been a part of the Samuels family for nearly 25 years.
So in your business, how have you seen a change in the way we communicate face to face?
Well, in my business specifically with retail, it changes because customers now come in armed with pricing, where they didn't before. You know, before it used to be an experience. It was an activity to go shopping.
Yeah.
Where now, thanks to the online presence and everything, people already have a wealth of information that they never had before. So it changes because people want less interaction with sales associates because they already know what it is they're seeking out. They already know more information, and they just want to kind of come in now, find what they want. If they have questions, they ask, but there's fewer questions.
Does it like help or hurt you, would you say?
You know, it does both, actually. I mean, it makes it easier, obviously, for our salespeople, that's for sure, but it hinders their ability to do what they love to do, which is to help people. I mean, that's it. So that's really it in a nutshell.
So where do you see the future of face-to-face communication going?
I think it's going to be cyclical, but ultimately it's going to decline. It's going to decline, and I don't think it's ever going to recover to the levels it did back when I was a kid or our parents were kids. But certainly with technology, it's made it very easy and efficient to do business in a different way, and that's never going to go away. It's only going to get worse in that regard. But I do think that it's going to come back at some point because non-face-to-face communication or a lack of it is not a good thing. It's going to be a bad thing. It really is. It's going to hinder a lot of people. It's going to hurt a lot of things. So I'm hoping that it does rebound, but never to the levels where it used to be. The only thing that we can do is to understand, I think, as a whole in the society, the detriments that it causes. I think it causes a lot of people to have emotional deficiencies. You know, I mean, granted, that's not necessarily in retail, it's just overall that you're going to have to fix at some point. I think we're growing a whole different generation of people now than we ever did before, and everybody's going to have to adapt to that. It's got its hindrances. I don't see a whole lot of benefit into the whole social media and the Facebook era at all, though. I really don't. It gives people a false sense of hope, false sense of promise, false sense of security. You know, and we don't have the ability to come out and do what you're doing, which is to talk to somebody face to face.
On Sunday, February 11th, I visited the Kroger Marketplace in Gahanna, Ohio to ask shopgoers what direction they see the future of interpersonal communication going.
See the future of face-to-face communication going?
I think it's declining to certain days. Absolutely.
What do you think are some factors of that?
Cell phones.
Yeah.
It's a big thing. And it seems like people feel it's easier to text instead of actually communicate face-to-face.
Yeah. Okay. And where do you see the future of face-to-face communication going?
Where do I see it
Going? Increase or decrease?
Probably just because of what's happening technology-wise. I would probably see it decreasing to a certain extent.
Okay.
But I think anybody, hopefully no matter what age, would appreciate the value of face-to-face communication.
And where do you see the future of face-to-face communication going?
Honestly, I see it diminishing because of technology and social media.
Okay. What are some things you think we could do to help bring it up?
Just make it a requirement in school to teach interaction, face-to-face interaction.
All right. Very good.
Basics of communication.
And where do you see the future of face-to-face communication going? Like, will it increase, decrease?
Decrease, definitely decrease.
Okay. And what are some factors that go into that? Like, what has caused the decrease, do you think?
Social media.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Decrease. Is there anything we can do to improve, maybe increase our face-to-face communication?
Realistically, probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, even with my job, everything, I work from home a lot.
Yeah.
I don't talk to people face to face.
Okay.
So that's just the way it is.
Yeah, unfortunately. And where do you see the future of face-to-face communication going? Will it increase, decrease?
Well, what do you consider face-to-face?
It's talking like one another.
Actually being in the same room with somebody?
Yeah.
Well, people can be in the same room, but obviously Skype and these little stupid boxes have taken away from that. I don't think it'll change too much from where we're at now.
Okay. Is there anything we can do to maybe increase face-to-face communication?
I mean, human interaction.
Yeah,
Get humans together more often.
Okay. Very good. That's it. Thank you. And where do you see the future of face-to-face communication going?
Unfortunately, I definitely see it going downhill. Everyone communicates through their phone. And I think sometimes it makes people uncomfortable nowadays to like talk to somebody face to face.
Is there anything we can do to maybe improve, maybe increase the like human interaction?
I guess you just kind of got to force it, like through families, you know what I'm saying? Like make time for that communication and like, you know, phones for dinner or no phones during stuff like that, I think maybe.
Jay Veal is the promotions coordinator at concert promotion company Prime Social Group. Jay Veal has been in the entertainment industry for over 8 years.
Quite a lot. I remember having an actual telephone in my house growing up. That was like my first introduction to communication. Then cell phones. Seeing my parents have cell phones was a big thing. Pagers.
Yeah. Just in a media like entertainment perspective, what have you seen change, like grow, I guess, evolve in communication?
Communication. There's a lot of like these like new forms of email coming out nowadays. That's a big thing for some companies. As far as I've been in entertainment for about 8 years now, and it's always been email and like on the go, like texting and whatnot.
Yeah.
But yeah, the new thing is like it's called Slack. Check it out. It's like same thing as Gmail, but it's a lot of companies are actually using this. It's wiping out Gmail apparently. They're doing all their projects from their mobile, and you know,
I guess with like social media and just like the whole promotion and with that, how have you seen, has that changed?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Twitter's on the decline, but I think at the peak of Twitter, it was definitely. I mean, I feel like a lot of people still use Twitter to get like their instant news and like breaking information. I feel like Facebook is on the decline as far as the youth, like people your age. But I think it's a good thing that we have all these different platforms.
Yeah, of course. What can the current generation do to like improve, like bring back?
Oh, to bring it back.
Yeah, face to face.
I know in our industry, I've been seeing a lot of bigger artists say that you can't bring a cell phone into a show. Like Kendrick Lamar recently did that, I think in like Europe or something, I don't know. But yeah, you have to literally turn your phone in before you go into the show. So I mean, think maybe taking like that thought process into like everyday things. I don't know. It's kind of hard because a lot of people are like embracing, you know, technology. So yeah, I think it's more of a situational type thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Sam Malik is the creative director at Malik Media, a company that specializes in branding, marketing strategy, and design. He is a native of New Albany, Ohio.
Have you personally seen a change with how we communicate with one another in your time, like an evolution, whatever?
Well, for me, I think this is an interesting question. I bet if you were to ask someone 20 years older than me, they would probably have a much different answer and say that they've seen a drastic change in the way that we communicate. For me, I've kind of grown up in this digital era where I think a lot of our communication doesn't happen face to face anymore.
Yeah.
And I noticed that even, you know, in work, like for us, a lot of our team works remotely, so what used to have to, you know, be done over phone calls or in in-person meetings is done via Slack, if you've ever heard of it, or, you know, group messages or Skype or whatever. So I think there are a lot of pros and cons to that.
For sure.
I think as we have kind of moved into this more digital way of communicating, there's a lot more accessibility. You can communicate with people a lot quicker, but at the same time, I think people lose out on a lot of the meaningful interactions that they would get just, being face with a person. I think, that being said, we've kind of grown up with it. It is funny, like, when I was younger, I used to memorize people's home phone numbers and we would call home phones. Of course, that's all changed now, and younger generations are not ever going to know that problem again. It has changed a little bit, but at the same time, we're kind of growing up with it all, which is really interesting. So, seeing that, I look back at school and I think, okay, well, what was really helpful for me that set me up for all of that and that made me the good communicator that I think I am today? I really think that having to do group presentations, which I hated in high school, I hated group presentations, but when I look back at it, I'm like, you know what? There's something about that moment of having to sit and watch 10 other people go ahead of you and be nervous the entire time. I mean, the optimist in me says, oh, it's gonna find a way to increase because I want it to, and I want people to have more interpersonal connections with one another. But I also think that in the direction that things are heading right now, it definitely has a potential to decrease. But I say that in the sense of very truly face-to-face communication. I think there could be an increase in more digital face-to-face communication, which I think loses a whole lot of the personal touch of the intricacy of us running into each other, going up and getting
the nuances
coffee,
of everything.
Right? You don't get that out of a phone call. You get maybe some issues with Wi-Fi connection, but that's about as rocky as it gets other than staring at a screen. So I personally, I believe deep down that we will get to a point where people kind of become so inundated with this technology that they start to discover the importance of face-to-face relationships again. I think that might take time, and I don't know how that's going to manifest itself, but I could see that playing out in some way or another.
A baseline question I asked to those being interviewed was, where do you see the future of face-to-face communication going, and will it increase or decrease? From the sample of 18 people interviewed, 15 said it would decrease, 3 said it would remain the same, and 0 said it would increase. As a member of Generation Z, it startles me at the disconnection between person to person from an interpersonal communication aspect. To move forward and advance society, it needs to be recognized that setting a screen down and physically interacting with one another can go a long way.
'Cause that's what you deserve. You sacrifice so much of your life in order for this to work, while I'm off chasing my own dream, sailing around the world. Please know that I'm yours to keep, my beautiful girl. When you cry, a piece of my heart dies, knowing that I may have been the cause. If you were to leave,